Hey everybody, got a great show for you tonight. I've just been to the Lincoln Charter School with Representative Kevin Schreiber. I know, how lucky am I? And he's got so much to tell us about, but I want you to get to know him as just the man in the community because he's done so much for us. So sit back, stay tuned, got a great show. See you in a minute. So here we are. Hi. I told you I had a great show tonight. So Representative Kevin Schreiber has joined me, but I'm so excited because Miss Lucy has joined us too.
Yes.
Miss Lucy, hi sweetheart. You are the best. She's a little shy.
And she's shy, but she knows she's the best.
Okay. Well, you know, I have one, Miss Maddie May, and she's a year older, and you're right, they're very stubborn, they're very opinionated.
Yes.
Yes, and they do know they're the best.
And they do,
There's
but they're so
nothing else,
sweet. Yep.
right, but they are so sweet.
Yep.
Yeah, they are.
Hey.
And I love the brown over her, eyes. She's just you are adorable.
And they were bred to be English lapdogs.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what her favorite thing is just to sit on a lap and hang out.
Well, I've had Maddie 2 months, and so she has just gotten to where she wants to lay her head on my knee. You know, she's getting used to me, and she wants to do that. And while we're talking about Miss Lucy, I mean, she is the poster child.
Yes, yeah.
You know, so if you'll tell us a little bit about this great bill.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've been in office now for a few months. I was elected on May 21st and sworn in early June.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Being a freshman legislator, you have to not only think about what the issues that are important to the district, the issues that are important right now, and one of them is animal rights. And believe it or not, we heard a lot about it on the campaign as I was knocking on doors. People recall in 2008, Pennsylvania was exposed as being a less than stellar state for animal care. And at the time, Governor Rendell and the General Assembly put a package of bills together to improve our performance. But unfortunately, recently, our Auditor General just showed that a lot of our dog laws are not being enforced properly in the state.
Right.
Taking his report and looking at it, one of the things that an early piece of legislation that I'm introducing is to help, it's essentially an animal rights bill, but it's also a consumer rights bill.
Okay.
And what we'd like to do is, if this passes, all pet stores throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania will be required to display more pertinent information to dogs that are for sale.
Yay.
So it's not just the date of birth of the dog, the sex and the breed, but it's also where they were bred.
Because a lot of people don't understand.
Exactly. Health records of the dog, the breeder information. And again, you know, Lucy has become a poster child because when my wife and I purchased Lucy, she was only 2.9 pounds. She was 6 months old at that point and had shown signs of malnourishment, of mistreatment. And we ultimately looked up the breeder information and found out they were not a reputable breeder, unfortunately. And we have a lot of good ones in the state. We have a lot of good pet stores. But what this bill proposes to do is not only raise the caliber of care for our dogs, but also provide more information to consumers so they can make a well-informed decision when they purchase the dog.
Absolutely.
And ultimately, hopefully over time, less consumers are put in an emotionally tough decision or a tough process to pay high vet bills to take care of their new puppy.
Did.
Yep, we did.
Right.
And we got it right.
Right.
But there's a cost to that, or there's an emotional cost, which is unfortunately in some cases people purchase puppies that are not doing well and ultimately may not make it.
Right. I've had a couple of friends go through that. And so I love this bill because of that. And even though as an advocate on my show, yes, I know, that the first thing I do on my show is try to get babies adopted.
Yes.
Because we want adoption.
Exactly.
But I have a lot of friends who do purchase their babies, I call them babies, do purchase their babies, and they need this information.
Yes.
This is the reason that I say don't buy, because you don't know where they're coming from.
Exactly.
And I've had too many friends who've lost their, new babies.
Exactly.
And you've got that emotional investment. You may have financial investment, and they still don't make it.
Right, exactly. So all this really does, I've jokingly, but somewhat seriously said, this is like a Carfax for doggies.
I love that. I love that term.
Yep, it gives more information to consumers.
What's coming through.
Exactly, and it includes any health issues that the dogs have had. A lot of dogs, obviously, they get shots, they get their vaccines, they get worming treatments.
Right.
So this will give all that information up front.
Perfect.
It really is a consumer rights bill as much as it's animal welfare.
Absolutely. So I thank you for this.
No, my
For
pleasure.
your first bill.
Yes.
You're doing a great job.
And it's gotten great, tremendous support on both sides. We have over 40 co-sponsors of the bill, and of that, over a dozen are Republican. So this has been a good bill. Republicans see the value in it just as Democrats do, because it's very common sense.
Okay. Now, for your next bill, when it comes to animals,
yes,
if you could talk about people letting their dogs run without a leash.
Yeah.
I almost hit a little doggy that jumped out of a car the other day. The woman opened the door and the dog just jumped out into traffic.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and we got to do something about that.
We really do.
Yeah.
And, you know, ultimately, I don't pretend that this bill will miraculously solve everything overnight, but it's a step in the right direction.
Right.
And, you know, as long as Pennsylvania continues to persist as having a less than stellar reputation, you know, what we as legislators can do, what we as Pennsylvanians can do, is demand a higher caliber of performance of our pet stores, of our breeders, but of our residents as well in caring for the animals.
Absolutely. One of my little babies who passed away a couple of years ago came from a puppy mill. And unfortunately, because their treatment in the puppy mill is so horrendous,
it is.
That they have back, hips and knees injury because they don't allow them to stand.
Right, exactly.
And I had her for almost a year. She passed away from cancer because of the treatment that she had gotten there. So they backtracked it to there. So.
And that's really a situation that no Pennsylvanian should have to endure.
Exactly.
So hopefully over time, more information being provided will allow our consumers to make better informed decisions.
I've known you for several years.
Yes.
I've watched you kind of grow up, if you will.
Yeah.
And you are one of the few people here in York who I think, other than like Mayor Bracey, who I see on a day-to-day basis, who loves your community, who loves what's going on, who tries to make it better, and not at the cost of the person who's living here.
Right.
You are doing great things for the residents here.
Thank you.
I love watching. We were this morning at the Lincoln Charter School.
Yes, yeah.
And I've always enjoyed, we know you love animals.
Yep, yeah.
And watching you this morning with the kids.
Oh, yeah.
You were like a little boy playing with the kids, which is great.
I can't say enough good things about York. I did not grow up in York, but I've made it my home. I've lived over a third of my life here. We're sitting today in my neighborhood in Newton Square.
Right.
And just only a few blocks away, a few blocks west is Lincoln Charter, and we were there for Walk to School Day.
Right.
And the kids just have a blast. And, too often in our society we get mired in the negative news and the daily, 24/7 news cycle. We forget that, on a constant daily basis, there's so much good things going on.
Right.
And today was, again, another positive, reassuring day when you get to hang out with 759 kids, shut down the whole West End so that they can walk to school.
Exactly.
And then they have a dance party in their playground area.
I love the dance. I love the dance. And Mayor Bracey out there on that bad leg, dancing with the kids. She's got to take me out one night so she can teach me a couple of steps.
And likewise myself.
Right.
But
I saw you doing
I was trying to. I was trying my best. And if it's for the kids, I'll do it.
There you go.
But no, I think York has so many positive things going for it. And again, much like every city in America, we have challenges, much like every community in America. But what's so great about, York City and our 95th district that I now am fortunate to represent is we have a tremendous amount of very positive things. We have all types of students accomplishing very good things. We have neighbors helping neighbors, and our community continues to prosper. And we may take a step back here and there, but we're constantly making several steps forward. And
you
I've
can
always
see it just by going in the community.
You really can. I mean, you can, and what I love about living here in Newton Square is, we're close enough to our downtown. My wife and I and Lucy can walk to, most any of the amenities that our city boasts. And we're also in, a nice little quiet neighborhood, and it's just right. York is just right.
Just right.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I said when I came here. I've been here almost 13 years. And if I had known this place existed, as I said, I would have been living here, because it's just so quaint and so beautiful.
It really is.
It's peaceful, and you've got York outside, but you've got this little piece of solid serenity, I guess would be it.
It's a very little bucolic setting in an urban environment.
Exactly. And so when I looked for a lot of houses and nothing came through, and they kept telling me, friends that I knew, because I didn't know York.
Yes.
I had never lived here, right? So friends that I knew kept saying, you can't look at that house, you don't want to live there, you don't want to live there. And I've told this story before, but it just makes me wrap my mind around what's happened since then. And so I looked at everything else, and like at 3 months, my real estate agent said, "There's nothing out here. You want to look at something that you've seen?" I said, "No, I want to see that house I'm not supposed to live in."
Yeah, right.
And so South George Street, you know, down by York Hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
Great neighborhood.
It is. It's phenomenal.
And so, not knowing the area, we came off 83 and started up through there, you know, and there's York Hospital on the right, and we go in the next block, and there's a mansion, and there's a mansion, and there's a great place on the right. I see this beautiful church lurking up, and then we come to the light, and we stop, and I look up, and there's a castle. And in my mind, I'm going, what's wrong with this place, right? And that was my neighborhood, right? And so I walked in the house, and within 5 seconds, I knew it was my house.
Right.
So I went back to these people and I said, "Why can't I live in York?" And they said, "The race riots." And I said, "You mean they're having race riots?" Like, no, it's like 30 years ago. I said, "Then why can't I live there?"
Yeah. I mean, and there's so many great stories just like that, and we forget, you know, such awesome historic neighborhoods that we have throughout the city, and many of them are tucked away, but you know, then some are out on display 24/7. The avenues, Springdale, you know, just Salem Square, where we were today with Lincoln Charter. Just to walk around with those kids was a blast. And then, you know, I've been fortunate now to represent the 95th, which is also taking me outside of the city to West York, to Spring Garden, to North York and West Manchester, where equally great neighborhoods, and knocking on doors through a campaign process will take you right up to the doorstep of so many of our really fun.
In every neighborhood.
Yep, exactly. And so, you know, the job's been a blast. I really enjoy it, and I enjoyed the 7 years plus that I worked for the city, because
I was going to say, you did great things for the city before,
thank you.
before you got, you know, your new position.
Thank you.
And how was that transition? I mean, you still have both eyes.
Yes.
You know, so
I don't think I'll ever take my city hat off. But it was a busy transition, to say the least. You know, certainly with this special election is unique, and it was very fast paced, and sworn in June, which is also the same month as the state budget process. So it was a little trial by fire, dropped right into the frenzy.
Welcome to your job.
Exactly. But it was also, I thought it was a great learning experience. It was a good time to be all consumed up in Harrisburg, to see the state in its most frenzied state, but also to really get into the details, and to swamp myself in information and try to study as much, try to listen as much, and ask as many questions as possible. And since it was an all-consuming month, I really spent a fair amount of time in the Capitol, and also got to know a lot of my colleagues very quickly. You know, much quicker.
Let me ask you a question, not to interrupt.
Sure.
I asked this to Mayor Bracy when we did our little walk and talk last year. What was it like the first time someone said to you, "Representative"?
I don't think I knew who they were talking to. You know, often people will say, you know, "Should I call you representative?" I said, "No, call me Kevin." You know, because at the end of the day, you know, it's my job to represent our district, to represent Pennsylvania. But I'm still Kevin, and still Kevin Schreiber, and still living in Newton Square, and on days when I'm not in Harrisburg, still walking to work, which is great.
There you go, which is great. Which is why I keep saying, to me, one of the things that I enjoyed watching about you, you know, over the last several years, is that you are kind of like a man of the people. and I don't mean, you know, it's not like Abe Lincoln, you know, that kind of thing, but man of the people, because you are so accessible. You care so much about, because that was your job before, you know, and now that you represent all of the people in this district, now you're a man of the people, and you like being called Kevin. Yep. Yes. You know? So that makes you even more accessible, and that's what we need. We need to know Kevin.
Well, and I think most people want a politician that they can relate to, that understands the challenges that they may be dealing with. And I think in my previous life with the city, and now my life with the state, you know, one of those lenses that you have to view everything through is put yourself in someone else's shoes. You know, you certainly can't make judgments. You can't make hasty decisions without recognizing all perspectives. And then you try to make the best well-informed decision you can. But, you know, there's Harrisburg, there's legislation, there's policy creation and development. That's, you know, a very big role of a legislator. Another role is just being accessible and providing good, sound constituent service, and really, you know, trying to understand the best things about your community and what's going to move it forward.
And you're a good job.
Thank you.
Do a good job.
Thank you.
Good man for that. Now, I'll kind of change it here just a little bit. We want to get to know Kevin just a little bit.
Sure.
So what kind of a little boy was Kevin?
Rambunctious.
Oh, yeah?
That might be a good word. Maybe a mini politician. I was the middle child. I'm one of four, so my older sister and I were right in the middle, and I think I like to try to keep everyone entertained and keep everyone happy. I certainly would say I was a bit of a jokester and would, try to have fun. I'm a very positive, optimistic person. I think you have to be in this type of work.
Absolutely.
But I think I tried to do that as growing up too. So I'm sure I got into trouble. I'm sure if you ask my parents, they might have a different story.
Did that rambunctiousness ever get you in
Hopefully, I'm not
trouble?
revising history,
Okay.
but for the most part, I came from a great family. I have two great parents who have been very supportive and great brothers and sisters, and I was fortunate to have access to a very good education, and I came to York for York College, and that's really what brought me here, and had a great time. York College is an excellent school. I still keep in touch with many of my professors.
So were those the wild and crazy years then? I mean, we know you were
those wild and
rambunctious.
crazy years haven't ended yet.
Oh, okay.
But it's what brought me to York. I fell in love with York, and I was fortunate to really grow up in a good house and with a good family. And I know that's a luxury to some and something that I would never take for granted.
Exactly. Like you, I did the same thing. But there are so many people who don't have that.
Right.
So I feel very fortunate to have that because it's a foundation. It gives you
is.
a good foundation. So you said there are three siblings?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Sisters, brothers?
I have an older brother, older sister, and a younger sister.
Oh, okay.
And we're all out on our own, and we're all married now at this point too. Just
Really?
recently, my little sister and my older
Oh,
brother
I
just
saw that on
recently got
Facebook.
married. Yep.
Right.
Yes.
Great
yeah.
pictures, right. They
Yep.
look like a good time.
Yes, it was fun. It was a great time. So we're a big family. We get together quite frequently. My parents live in Downingtown, which is only about an hour away, so it's not too far of a trip. So I'm able to get out there as much as possible.
So you've got kind of the best of both worlds. You've got an older brother, so you have an older
Yes,
brother.
yeah.
And you've got two younger sisters, so you're
Older sister and a younger sister.
Oh, an older
Yep,
sister.
yeah.
Okay, so then you've got an older sister
Yep.
you can look up to too.
Yes, yeah.
Right? And a younger sister that you can be a big brother to.
And let me tell you, that was tough watching her get married. I think a good older brother is still protective of his little
Absolutely.
sister, and probably will be, even
Trust me.
beyond
Trust
when she
me.
says I do. So
Trust me.
So that was tough.
My brother calls me every day. Just because I don't have family here, and
Yep.
so he calls me every day just to make sure everything's okay.
Yep, it is.
Yeah.
They're always your little sister.
Exactly.
And conversely, I know that I have two great older siblings that have been very supportive of me, and I can't say enough about my family.
So you had role models, which is good. Besides
Yep.
your parents, you
Yes.
had your
Yeah.
sibling, and that's great. I was just saying that I actually got to see my brother last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
He was 2.5 hours away, so I drove to have lunch with him.
Oh, that's great.
It's like you get this close, I'm coming to see you.
Right, exactly.
And we were talking about the fact that you have these older role models, as you're growing up. And I always joke with him, that because we joke all the time, which is great. And you've got this
Yep.
great sense of
Yes.
humor, so
Yeah.
I'm sure you do
Yes.
the same thing. And one of my favorite jokes, even though he is, Daddy passed away like 15 years ago, so he tried to be patriarch of the house the day of the funeral. We come back from the wake, and there are 4 girls in my family.
Oh,
He's
wow.
got 4 younger
Oh,
sisters.
God bless him.
He did, yeah, exactly. He
Yep.
didn't stand a chance,
Yeah.
right? So Mom and the 4 girls are standing there, and he said, "Okay, so now that Daddy's gone, I'm the head of the household." We all looked at him and said, "Sit down, boy." That's not
Here's a
gonna
lesson
happen.
in life.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And so we have this joke that I was talking to him one day on the phone, and I hung up on him, and he called me right back, and he said, "Did you hang up on me?" I said, "I don't know. Did it sound like this?" So you got to have that with,
Yes,
with
you do.
your family, because that's your foundation.
It is,
Yeah.
yep. And as people grow up and change, over the course of a lifetime, that you still, are family, and,
Right.
and blood is thicker than water.
So when you were in college, you have studied PR and
Yeah,
marketing?
I started as political science, and at some point in the course of study, just switched over to public relations. Ultimately graduated with public relations major, and then a few years ago finished my graduate degree at Penn State in public administration.
Okay. And everybody, I think, meets somebody
Yes,
at
yeah.
college. So you met someone?
I was fortunate to have a lot of great friends and good professors, and at the tail end of college, my wife was starting college. My wife is born and raised in Dallastown. She went to Dallastown High School, so she's a York native. She's a few years younger than I, and it was actually when after college, I moved downtown, lived with a great friend of mine named Sean on West Market Street.
That's how long I've known you.
Yes, yeah. Lived on West Market. We lived right across from Sam Antoni's, and we were about half a block from a little coffee shop called Sparky and Clark's.
Right.
It's no longer there. It's actually now Newgrounds.
Loved it.
And I used to go in quite frequently for coffee, and there was a cute barista there that would serve me my coffee, and I would probably linger a little too long, and she would probably flirt a little, and vice versa. And ultimately, we ended up going out and dated for a few years, and ultimately, I proposed to her at the coffee shop too.
Oh, did you?
So it was very nice. So we met in a coffee shop, proposed in a coffee shop. It was shortly after Sparky and Clark's closed that my wife and her best friend Vanessa spent a fair amount of time putting a business plan together, and ultimately opened their own coffee shop called the Green Bean.
A great place.
It is.
Place
Yep.
downtown, right?
It is, and again, I mean, you couldn't have two better entrepreneurs, both York College students, both best friends, and worked about 8 years at Sparky and Clark's, and then ultimately opened their own. And I remember when they were looking, and individuals would say, why don't you go here or there or out, off of 83? And I think they were steadfast in saying, nope, they wanted to be downtown. That's where their customers were, their patrons were.
I was going to say, they knew downtown. That's, as you say, that's where their customers were.
And it's actually, it's unique too that Jen and Vanessa own the coffee shop. Both live about equidistant from the coffee shop, so they're both about 4 blocks away, so they can both walk to work too.
That's great. Now, before we go on, Jen and Vanessa. Okay, that was the first time you said. So, are you married to Jen or Vanessa?
I'm married to Jen. Yes.
I know that. Jen
Yes.
Jen is Lucy's mama.
Jen is Lucy's mom. Vanessa's our best friend, and maid of honor, and they're like two peas in a pod. But yes, Jen and I have been married for coming up on 5 years. We'll celebrate our 5th anniversary here in the next couple months, and we just love York, and we love that we've been able to have a small, impact on our community. And I think that's, we both love public service. I love, having worked for government, having worked for a city, and now working for the state, and representing people, and really trying to improve our quality of life. And my wife, serves coffee and makes people smile every day.
That's it. She starts their day with a smile.
She does.
And a cup of coffee.
And a cup of coffee.
Right, which is, there's no way better to start
the day. There really is not.
Nope.
And of course, it wouldn't be my wife's coffee shop if it wasn't dog friendly. So we, on Saturday mornings when my wife works, I've been a little busy lately, but on some Saturdays when I'm free, I'll walk Lucy up. We'll hang out, grab a cup of coffee. I'll read the Saturday paper, and Lucy will get her peanut butter cookie.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. Lucy, do you mind if I bring Miss Maddie May?
No, not at all.
Maybe she can't
coffee date.
She can't have, right. No play date, just
no
coffee
play date, just
right,
coffee.
Right, exactly. So after school, what'd you do? I mean, you had this great education.
Yes, yeah. I worked on some political campaigns. Actually, I worked in some state rep campaigns, and then ultimately I worked for an art gallery here in York for a local artist named Brenda Wintermeyer.
Oh, yes.
And a local supporter of the arts named Bob Pullo. And many know Bob Pullo, and I was fortunate. He was a great individual. I got to work not only for the art gallery and for some of the other companies that Bob has. So I really got, afforded a great opportunity, a good mentor, and an individual that not only employed me and, I worked on all the various ventures that he has, but also really instilled that the community is important. So regardless of your employment, whatever level of employment you're at, it's important to be involved in your community. And that, so Bob really afforded me the opportunity to not only work and be gainfully employed, but also become involved in the community. I joined York Young Professionals, and I served on the board of York Arts, and really was able to get involved. And at some point in that course of time, I began working for Mayor John Brenner and helping out with a lot of the city initiatives, and ultimately was offered a job working for the City Economic Development Department. And sort of the rest is history. I had a great several years working under Mayor John Brenner, and ultimately became department director. I think it was in 2008, and then ultimately I was asked to stay on board for Mayor Kim Bracey, and I really enjoyed that time that I had to work with the city and for the city.
And again, great job.
Thank you.
Because I remember coming down one day, and you probably don't remember this. It was many years ago. And to ask about zoning. I needed some help with the zoning in my area, because I was completely at a standstill where, and I think this was the time when they were turning Hun Home into a funeral home, and we were fighting it.
Yes,
we were all fighting it because our zoning was you couldn't be a bed and breakfast, which they wanted to open a bed and breakfast. Not the funeral home, but somebody else wanted to open a bed and breakfast, and we were all rooting for that, you know.
Yeah.
And but in our area, you can be a boarding house. So how you can't have a B&B and you can be a boarding house, and you explained to me, because I was thinking of opening up a little shop in the front of my house, and it's a commercial area, but I could be an art gallery.
Yes.
But I couldn't do retail.
Right.
And the last time I saw an art gallery where you couldn't be retail, it was called a museum.
Right, exactly. Yes. Yeah.
So you were very patient in explaining all of this to me.
Zoning is a tough thing for any individual to master, and we have some great employees at the city. We actually spent the better part of 18 months updating our zoning ordinance, which hadn't been done in probably 20 years, and modernizing it. And just some of those things that you had mentioned, art gallery, home occupation. I mean, in the 80s when our last zoning ordinance was written, you know, no one ever conceived of a home occupation sitting with a laptop and doing graphic design. You know, and technically, you know, under the old zoning ordinance, that would have not been allowed.
Right, exactly.
But you know, who doesn't sit at home and do some work? And unfortunately, many of us are too close to our work when we're at home too, and can't turn the email off.
Exactly.
But, so you know, over the course of time, you obviously have to listen to people. You got to try to make things work. You know, recognizing that there's a whole lot of perspectives out there. You got 43,000 residents in the city that you're concerned about, 17,000 structures, and a whole lot of commercial interests. And you know, a majority of time, the common thread is people just want good service, and they want to be able to, you know, live in a good area, and that's what we try to do.
And I think have their voice heard.
Yes.
You know, that's a tremendous thing. You know, and we won't get into it, but with the way things are going in Washington right now, there's not a lot of people getting heard.
Right. Yep. Yes. There's always two sides to every coin.
Right.
You know, and some of the things that I think it takes to be a politician is, as I said at the onset, is really to recognize an individual's perspective and to respect that perspective. You know, I think politicians have to be able to have a mutual respect for each other. I know several of our York County delegation, the state reps, the senators, all great individuals. They care about their community. We may not agree 100% of the time. We may not agree 50% of the time. But we have a mutual respect for each other, and we recognize each other. We bring different experiences and understandings to the table. And the ability to have that discourse and have that debate, but still recognize that you have a professional respect for the other individual. I think it helps. And that
happens in every business.
It does.
You know, it's not just politics. You know, it's every business going. IBM does the same thing. Everybody does the same thing. You've got to come with the professionalism and recognizing that everybody's not going to agree with you.
Yes.
And
you've got to be able to compromise.
But you respect their opinion.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
And when it's already a policy, it's a policy. You know, so there's not much you can do with it once that's done. So
exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, enough about politics. We try not to do politics.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is such a quaint place. I'm just looking at these buildings and I'm absolutely enthralled because you can feel the history. You know, of Newton Square. What is the history of Newton Square?
It really is a wonderful neighborhood. This is a great little tucked away neighborhood in downtown New York, just off of Newbury and Princess Street. And the history of Newton Square is there are several homes, and we're fortunate to live in one of them that was built in 1875. Now, in the post-Hurricane Agnes flood of 1972, many Yorkers remember that, much of this area was washed out and flooded. Much of it was left abandoned and portions of it demolished. And at the time, city professionals at the time, the redevelopment authority, considered tearing it all down, building a warehouse district. Well, several residents of the time convinced the city and those in charge to save this, to preserve it, and not only to preserve it, but build additional housing and start a back to the city movement. So in the late 70s, early 80s, much of this was restored. Urban pioneers, you know, young professionals moved back to this neighborhood, and then the houses around us were built subsequent to that as well. So got it. We've always had a great mix of good, strong neighborhood home ownership, all age ranges. You know, you have young professionals that move in, you know, pre-marriage, once they're married, have kids, maybe have to move out to get a bigger house, and then we've got a great mix of older professionals that just love being close to their downtown and close to the services the downtown has and all the great things that we have.
Well, it's great to live here, and then you can walk downtown and have a glass of wine.
It really is.
And go walk home.
Yep, exactly,
Right,
precisely.
Exactly. That's why when I moved here, I wanted to live in the city, you know, because it's, having lived in New York, you would just walk out and hail a taxi.
Exactly.
You can't do that here, you know.
Right.
And you don't want to drive. You don't want to drink and drive. So.
No, of course not. And we're close enough that obviously we can take Lucy for a quick walk. We're a couple blocks from the rail trail, which is also great accessibility. So yeah, it's just a wonderful neighborhood, and it's tough to get pizza delivered because they can never find it.
Right.
But you know, we work past that.
Right.
That's the only downside I can think of.
GPS was created for that.
Exactly.
Right.
So the neighbors all love it. It's a great neighborhood, and this speaks to some of the great historic neighborhoods we have in New York.
Exactly. And you said that this is an incredible place for Halloween.
Yes, it is. Trick-or-treating is wonderful.
Right.
We have lots of kids coming by, parents walking them around, you know, all the way up to teenagers, and they just have a blast, and we really enjoy it.
Do you get in costume?
I don't, but Lucy does.
Okay. Well, as long as she meets them at the door,
yes,
it's okay.
right, exactly.
And tries not to eat all the candy.
She doesn't eat the candy. She just focuses on the bones.
There you go. So this is a great neighborhood to raise children in.
Yes.
So
just the doggy right now.
Okay.
My wife and I have a very busy lifestyle.
Okay.
With her coffee shop is her baby. Obviously, I'm quite busy with the new transition for state rep, and Lucy keeps us pretty occupied too. So maybe someday. But we like being the aunt and uncle right now too. We got great niece and nephew.
It's a great place to be.
Love to spoil them. Get them all sugared up and give them to, and then hand them back.
I've done that for years.
And several of our friends that live in the neighborhood, they've had kids now too. So, you know, it is great to see the strollers out and to see the kids playing.
Right. So, in the future, maybe.
We'll see.
Yeah. Being an aunt and uncle, as you said, is a great thing.
It's a great fun. It's good fun.
As my brother used to say, let me have them for 15 minutes and then I'll put them back in the closet.
Yep, exactly.
So Lucy is taking all of this in with no give You are a star, Missy.
Yes,
you
and
are
she
a
knows
star,
it.
And she knows it. Look at that face. Just give him that look in the camera.
She will inevitably have to nap the rest of the day.
So will Lucy be getting? Oh, hi, darling. Will she be getting another sister, brother?
We have often helped foster some dogs, and Lucy likes to be the center of attention.
Right.
So if that attention is taken off her for far too long, she gets a little attitudey.
So they don't get to stay long, is what you're saying?
Exactly. Yep. They can hang out for a little bit,
but it's good for her because you're gone all day.
Exactly.
So it's nice for her to have a little attention.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
So she likes to be a little prima donna.
So, when did you fall in love with animals?
I think we always had animals growing up. I've been through all sorts, from rabbits and guinea pigs and
Did you live
to
on
fish.
A farm, or did
No,
you live?
we lived in a great little community called Phoenixville, which is in Chester County, not too far away. And we always, we would go through the animals. God bless my parents for all the various animals we've had and the fish. And then we always had a dog growing up. A great dog as a young
What was your first
kid,
one?
Kringles.
Okay.
It was a Christmas puppy and a little toy poodle, and just a great dog. Good, energetic, good companion. And then throughout the better part of my life growing up, we had Hershey, who was a Peekapoo, a Pekingese poodle.
I love Peekapoos.
And just Hershey was a great dog. Lived for 17 years, another great companion. And really that was, growing up, I had her for the better part of my formative years. And ultimately, she was diagnosed with diabetes around 12 and still lived for about 5 more years with us giving her insulin, and ultimately, declined in the end and, became deaf and blind, but still was a great little puppy. So she was a great dog. And my parents have a little dog named Rindy now.
Rindy.
And Lucy and Rindy get along. And,
good.
And my in-laws, Jen's parents, have a little Pomeranian named Cooper.
Oh, that's adorable.
And so Lucy likes to go hang out with Cooper if Jen and I are going away for a week or a weekend and are going on vacation. Lucy
has that social.
Yep, Lucy gets to hang out.
Right.
So she certainly likes to go and play with the other dogs, visit the other dogs. But like we like to be an aunt and uncle, Lucy likes to come home and be the only child.
Right. And so funny, I lost one last Christmas, and before that I had 4. I had a Peekapoo, and I had a Black American Peak. Or I had a
nice.
Lassapoo and a Black American Peak. Okay, I adopted them from the SPCA, and I couldn't get them for a while until they'd been spayed and neutered. So it was like, 4 weeks. You had to get references, and
Yep.
you had to check your references
Yes,
and all
yeah.
that. And so they finally called me on a Saturday morning. They said, you can come get him because we found his scar.
Oh, okay.
And I said, okay, what about her? And they said, well, the doctor's already gone, so you can't.
Oh.
Next morning, they call me at 7 o'clock and say, the doctor found her scar, come get her. It's like, okay. 4 nights later at midnight, we're running through these fields, and having a great time, and we come home. And I was doing radio at the time. I had a radio network at the time down in Baltimore. And so we'd bring them to the office, just to acclimate them,
Right.
didn't want them to be alone the first couple of days. And on Friday of that week, she was in my office, and all of a sudden she gave me one of these looks, and it's like...
And you know that look.
Right, and I look down and there's water on the floor, and it's like, okay.
Yep.
Now I got it. Don't worry, I'm not going to scream. Let's take you outside. So I called my ex-husband, and he was taking them outside. He got right outside the door and he started screaming. Come help me, she's dying.
Oh.
And I think she swallowed a mouse.
Oh, geez.
She was giving birth.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. She's
Get
been
out.
spayed and neutered.
Oh,
right?
my gosh.
Right. But she's giving birth 4 days later, in my office. And she went on to have 4 puppies.
Aw.
So because it was a Black American
Yep.
Peak, and the other, I called them Lassapikapoos.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
That's a good mix.
Right. And so the last one passed away about a year ago. But he went through all the girls, right? All the girls.
Oh.
He had to sit in the back seat, he had to eat last, that kind of thing. And as the one before him was passing, you could see him doing this little dance.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be an only child. I'm going to be an only child. So I know where Lucy comes from.
Yes. Well, you bring up a good point, too. We have a tremendously incredible SPCA here in York
Yes,
County.
we do.
And the more that individuals can support them and support their mission and what they
Right.
do. And if anyone hasn't been up to the building right up off of 83 North, it's not too far from the York metropolitan
Great
area.
place.
It is, and they're always welcoming to anyone that wants to come in and tour it,
Right.
see some of the animals. They have, at any given point in time, over 100 dogs, and they have 4 times as many cats.
Cats.
So we can't stress enough, not only to spay and neuter animals, but to really support the mission of the SPCA,
Right.
the Humane Society, because they're really, sort of the St. Jude of animals.
Absolutely. And if I can add one thing, chip.
Yes, yeah.
Chipping is very important.
Yes, it is.
I mean, I don't know how many times a day I forward things on Facebook
Yep.
because someone's
lost their puppy or their cat.
Can you help us find it in this area? Or that I put on the show every week
Yep.
because there's another baby missing.
Yes.
So chipping and it's so inexpensive.
It is, and the SPCA will help in a lot of those procedures.
Right, exactly.
So they've got a great website, very informative, and for anyone that's interested, I know, as I said, they're always welcoming to a tour
Right.
and to get to know them, and they're always looking for volunteers to help
Exactly.
with the SPCA, to help with the animals, to help be dog walkers.
Right.
You have to go through a formal training process, so
Right.
you understand how to handle a lot of dogs that may not be used to people.
Right.
But it's a great program, and they do good work for our county.
Absolutely. I talk about them, as you say,
Yes.
volunteer, donate.
Yep.
Donate food, donate, bedding, donate
Yep.
kitty litter, donate anything you would give for your own kids. Donate money. Money's good.
And money
Hard
helps.
cash is
Money
good.
helps.
Yeah,
But they'll
yeah.
take blankets, they'll
Exactly.
take food, they'll take toys.
Anything.
And every other year, they just happen to have a fashion show where the dogs were on Walk the Runway.
Oh.
And next year, I know they have a Ties and Tails fundraiser.
Oh, okay.
So for your viewers, obviously
Right.
keep up to
Keep
date.
looking on their website, and I'll announce it myself. So,
Okay,
yeah,
wonderful.
We'll tell them all about it. So, okay, so now we're down to this portion.
Yes.
Tell me something about Kevin we don't know.
Ooh, I'm pretty much an open book. Something that you don't know. I'm a Pisces.
Okay, okay.
I enjoy lots of movies. I do like. I'd like to say
What
I'm a
kind?
movie and music buff. All kinds, all genres.
Okay.
You name a movie, and hopefully I've seen it. So I'm a good student of the classics and like a lot of newer movies. I don't get to watch as many as I used to, but I do love comedy movies. But also love a lot of our great classics like The Godfather and Goodfellas. My favorite superhero is Superman.
Okay.
Although I was always a fan of Spider-Man growing up as well.
Really?
But,
Okay.
but Superman, I mean, how can you beat him? He's
Right.
invincible. So I think there's probably not known about me, but
Right.
maybe known now.
Exactly. There you go. They're thinking about bringing back Wonder Woman.
Yes, yeah.
What do you think of that?
It's only a natural time.
Exactly.
We've had Spider-Man come back, the Hulk come back, the Avengers,
Exactly.
Iron Man.
Exactly.
So now we need Wonder Woman.
Maybe Lucy can be
I
Wonder
think
Woman.
she could at least be a good sidekick.
Exactly. So now that we've heard a few things, you love old movies.
Yes.
So do you know Nick and Nora Charles?
No, I
The
don't
Thin
know
Man
that.
series.
Oh, yes,
Thin
yes,
Man.
yes.
Okay, well
yeah.
that was Nick and Nora Charles.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so all the kids I had Nick and Nora, and Asta, who was their dog,
Oh.
and one named Charlie, because that was their last name.
So you don't like classic movies
No,
either,
no,
then?
not at all. And the last one I had was Dashiell for Dashiell
Oh,
Hammett.
okay.
Right, so I understand.
One of my favorite classics is Casablanca.
Okay.
I love it. It's obviously a great love story, and most women love it for the love story. I love it for the history too.
Right.
It is a great snapshot of history.
Absolutely.
It's a great movie.
Play it again, Sam.
Yep, exactly.
So I want to thank you,
Thank you.
for doing this today. I know you have to rush off, and otherwise we'd sit here with Lucy and chat
And
a bit
I think
more.
Lucy would be quite fine with that.
I think
She'd
so
be
too.
content.
So Lucy, I'm going to bring Miss Maddie May over to meet you on a Saturday, okay?
Yes.
Have coffee?
Let's do that.
We'll set that up.
Well, Lee, I can't
Thank
thank
you.
you enough. I
It's
can't
been my
thank
pleasure.
you. And you've always been a great supporter of our community and all the good things that we have going on. You've always been a good, optimistic, and positive person.
you. Thank you.
And I can't say enough in our society that we have to pay it forward and we have to talk very positively and highlight the good things.
Absolutely.
So thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you for all that you do, and hopefully we'll get a chance to sit down and do this again.
Yes,
Thank
I'd
you so
love
much,
that.
sir.
Thank you.